Are we keeping the promise? Are we keeping the promise of protecting the rights of groups vulnerable to stigma, discrimination, violence, abuse, and HIV/AIDS? Are we keeping the promise of fair treatment without fear? Are we committed to keeping the promise of universal access to HIV and AIDS treatment by 2010? Are we keeping the promise?
UNAIDS attaches a lot of value to addressing issues relating to vulnerable populations or populations that are vulnerable in the context of HIV. And sex workers are categorized in this group. It's not just sex workers, it's sex workers, men who have sex with men, young people in terms of the risky behavior of young people sometimes, persons with disability in relation to their own status of being disabled, and so on and so forth. So in terms of sex workers, we see them as a key sector to be looked at within the context of HIV, and we see it as being central to the response.
Who are these sex workers who leave their homes and travel to other countries in search of work? Who are they really?
Well, they are somebody's mother, sisters, cousins, and there are also men, and there are also somebody's father, son, and brother.
I'm the breadwinner for my family, and my pretension is to achieve something out of dancing. I have a son without a father. I'm the mother and the father, and I don't want him to become one of the gun gang or so therefore I want to work.
I think a lot of people discriminate us as dancers because I don't think they have enough information about the whole thing. They just see it as women that has multiple sex partners, and maybe to learn from us, to learn what we went through, why we are here. At the end of the day, we are all women. And I know that we dancers really protect ourselves against HIV, and we respect ourselves, and we know why we are doing what we are doing. Just like the lawyer know why he does his work, the doctor know why he does his work. We have a very good reason to do what we do. And it would just be nice if people would be willing to hear our side.
We have a stereotype of how these women are, and we judge them based on that. Many of them are women that I have come to greatly admire. They've left situations at home. Often they all have a similar dream, which is to be able to return to their homeland with sufficient to build themselves a little house and to live a better life.
Migrant sex workers face many problems in the countries they visit, from overwhelming stigma and discrimination to violence and abuse.
I think that migrant workers find themselves actually in triple jeopardy. First and foremost, they are, most of them, illegal, wherever they are. So their legal status is undefined, and with that comes a loss of rights. Secondly, of course, they are in a treacherous industry for purposes of survival, many of them. Survival either in the context of trying to get legitimacy of their status, or survival in terms of economic empowerment. And thirdly, of course, many migrant sex workers are taken at face value to be objects and to be people who don't have any rights, who don't have any values. So even when they offer their services as sex workers for purposes of financial or material gain, and they anticipate to be treated humanely, they face a lot of abuse and a lot of violence, because those who abuse them know that they have no legal recourse because they're illegal.
It is particularly difficult for those sex workers who travel from places like the Dominican Republic to countries in the English-speaking Caribbean.
One of the things that really is very striking is the extent to which these women are discriminated against. I think because, particularly in the early days when a lot of them were involved in sex work, really there's been a stigma attached to the Dominican women, and in many of the islands being Dominican is equated with being a prostitute. And it's very difficult with that label then to grow out of that and to be seen as something else.
What they get for pay is not enough. Just 70, 60, you know, for 8 for 35. You know, that's just they say when they have a sex is your 100 for one moment. That make them, you know, just think about it.
The whole language barrier, we have to stress on that, because that is their major problem. With the government having this community access center where they offer courses in English to Spanish speaking or other persons who do not speak English, they were